Welcome to Powered by Instinct, a podcast for professionals who think about how your fundamental nature drives performance. In each episode, Kolbe experts will interview top performers, team leaders, consultants, and coaches to discuss identifying team members' strengths, aligning those strengths with their jobs, and optimizing individual and team performance. If you're interested in getting more done more naturally, then let's jump in.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Powered by Instinct podcast. I'm David Kolbe, CEO and visionary of Kolbe Corp. And I'm really excited to have with us here today a couple of really dynamic leaders who I've known for a long time now, Angelique Ruers and Phil Dyer. Welcome to the show. Glad to see you guys.
It's really good to be here, David. It's good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, David. Thanks for having us on.
Sure. So Angelique is the CEO and founder of Bold House, and Phil is the executive vice president, and then they are longtime partners. Phil is also a longtime Kolbe certified consultant. So refresh my memory, guys. How did each of you hear about us? I think, Phil, you were first, weren't you?
I was first. So I was introduced to it by our friend Lisa Kay back in 2004, 2005, as part of a life planning / financial planning retreat. And it was one of the assessments that they required folks to do ahead of time. And I distinctly remember getting the results and then getting a great debrief from Lisa and really, kind of understanding it. And the way I describe it is like the clouds parted and the sun shone down and angels began singing because I finally understood why I did things the way that I did them. Because I'd really been working against the grain or trying to work against the grain and doing a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas, have tos from an operational standpoint. And it was hugely frustrating. And just, I was kind of spinning my wheels, and it really gave me the permission to operate, to understand how I worked best and then to operate that way. And then I kind of went on a tear because in addition to the Bold House work, I also own a financial planning company. And in the space of a couple of years after being introduced to Kolbe, I had outsourced, delegated, or deleted and anything that either I didn't want to do or really was not very good at and didn't have a whole lot of cognitive energy on. And my income went up about 500% over a 3-year period.
Wow. And so tell everybody what your Kolbe result is.
So I'm a 5.393.
So you were doing a lot of the more initiating follow through stuff, it sounds like, and you realize I am.
Well, yeah, I was attempting to.
I was going to say he was trying to, David. He was trying to.
I think I had I probably spent, $2,000 on office organizers to come in and create a system, and it would look beautiful for about 36 hours. And then it was back to file by pile after that. And, just all kinds of stuff like that. And then when it came to operational things in the business that required a lot more follow through energy, I just got that off my plate and hired folks that shockingly love to do, create systems and follow them in great detail, and enjoyed it, because that is definitely not me.
And then Angelique, how did you hear about Kolbe?
Yeah, so Phil and I actually met all the way back in 2009 in a mastermind group for small business owners. And he and I were definitely the two odd people out in that group. We were in the wrong room. We had fallen into the online marketing blender. And we sort of the first retreat, we found each other as the sort of two B2B corporate minded type people. And we really struck up a friendship, and we were both based in Baltimore. So we decided to start strategizing with one another, really collaborating with each other on our businesses. And Phil invited me to his office for a half a day to sort of have a working strategy session. But he said, before we can strategize together, I'm going to need you to take a Kolbe assessment so I understand your instinct of how you're going to come about this. And he said, I have a pretty good idea just from how we've worked together in this mastermind group, but I need to know. And so he insisted. I mean, he was like, because I almost didn't have, I'm a 6'3", and so I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, waiting to the last minute to get ready for my meeting with him. And he's like, Angelique, we are not going to have the strategy meeting until you take this assessment. So I did. And probably much like Phil, I had spent an awful lot of money on productivity experts, organizational experts
Yeah.
who always wanted to fix me. They always would see me as a project that needed fixing. And so for me, when I read my results for the first time, honestly, I cried because I had always felt as though I was always felt to be made wrong, that I was wrong in how I was showing up. And so it was really but it was tears of relief, to be honest with you, that I wasn't something to be fixed. I wasn't something to be made wrong.
Right.
And that the things that I gravitated to were actually my superpowers. But I think it was the line in my Colby results, David, that said, basically, no amount of productivity or professional organizers are going to be able to fix your desk. that that
Yeah.
that you're just going to have a lot of things at hand at one time. And it was just, when you talk about the freedom to be yourself, that permission, it was validation and it was vindication.
Yeah.
And those two things together. And I think I was overcome with a sense of relief that I could stop trying to fix the part of me that so many people insisted was wrong.
I shouldn't be amazed, and I'm not really surprised anymore, but it still strikes me your experience is so common, and it still is, again, a little even surprising and definitely amazing. Successful people, like you were already successful in business. It's not like
Mhm.
you were struggling and,
Yes.
hadn't achieved a
No,
lot.
we were
And yet
successful.
you
Right. Yeah.
still had that feeling of there's something wrong and broken, and I'm inviting other people to come in and fix me. And you get your Colby result and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not broken. I just need to tap into what I do best. And I need to find those people, Phil, as you talked about. You hire those other people to do the things. And it is shocking how many people love to do and are great. It's not just the affect of love, but they're great at doing the things that
God
we aren't.
God bless those people, David. God bless those people.
Yeah, I have
Really?
to say that the initiating follow throughs just fascinate me, and it's a little bit of a kind of a morbid fascination because their minds operate simultaneously in the past, the present, the future, and it's kind of just because as long line initiating quick starts, like we're just everything's future focused, and how can we improve things? What's around the next bend? And so their ability to craft workable systems on almost the drop of a hat, it really does fascinate me. And I'm so glad those folks are out there because otherwise we'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. So, all right. I looked up the comparisons A to A report for the two of you because you guys are very similar. So, a lot of times people think, well, if we're just alike, and your indexes aren't exactly alike, but they're very similar. A lot of people think, well, so there's never a problem. It'll just be seamless. And it's probably easier when you're very similar than if you're very different. But I'm going to read some quotes here and I want you guys to react to them. So here's one and tell me what you think. Is it true of the way you guys work together? If not, what do you think? Anyway, here goes. You need to avoid competing with one another by tackling different tasks towards shared goals. What do you think?
Oh, interesting. I think naturally. So, what's really interesting, and this is, I think, special to Phil and I really do believe this. Phil and I are not competitive with one another at all. And there is just this tremendous deep respect. And there's an ease that we've had from the get go. And it can get, we've actually had some stuff on the woo woo side mapped out that kind of explains some of why we have that ease together. For those in the audience who have a little bit more of the woo woo side of things, you'll get what we're saying. But we actually don't compete with one another. But here's what's interesting, David. I think, and Phil, I'm really curious what you have to say about this. I think one of the reasons we also don't compete with one another is because cognitively and affectively, we have different strengths. And so we both gravitate to our cognitive and affective strengths. And so we tend not to conatively compete with one another. We just sort of naturally gravitate to the things that we are naturally good at, which complements each other perfectly. And I think personality wise, since we're both very confident people that aren't feeling that need to be like, I have to outshine you, we're just naturally comfortable in our skin. That I think that helps. I'm curious, Phil, what you think about that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of I think there is a lot of affective, in this, in that we really, and I can't really say this about a lot of folks, but we operate kind of like sans ego, and we can disagree, we can and have like very differing viewpoints on different things, but it's a very like just straightforward discussion and be like, okay, like that, like, okay, that makes sense or it doesn't make sense, or I still think we should look at it this way, but there's no animus behind it. And so for affectively, there's just not anything there. And cognitively, background wise, we do have two, I mean, both very professional backgrounds, but very different life experiences and kind of stuff that we've done. So it allows us to cover a ton of ground. And then, so there's really no competition. I totally agree with Angelique. There's no competition on the cognitive side at all.
Okay. All right. Here's another one. And maybe Phil, you start with this one. Get others to define specificity and set priorities so the two of you don't spin your wheels.
So that one's interesting because so I'm a 5 fact finder. Angelique is a 6.
Yep.
Although I think she operates as a 7, probably, 5 or 6 days a week. She operates with the cognitive and affective adaptation. I think she probably operates more as an initiating fact finder frequently. And I can do it, but just in very, very short spurts. I've actually timed myself. I'm good for heavy duty research and really dialing in on stuff for about 45 minutes. And so if I have to research something, I'll actually set an egg timer and when it goes off in 45 minutes, I will stop and go do something else to let the battery recharge or the fuel tank refill. And then from a strategic priority setting standpoint, I think that definitely, Angelique definitely leads the company with regards to that on setting the strategic priorities, but then allowing the team members to do it the way that works best for them, not dictating or hovering over them on how to do it. And I basically, if it comes to anything that's logistical or detailed, I just tell them, like, don't ask me because I'm paying zero attention to that. And so if you ask me, if I tell you something, I'll probably tell you the wrong thing. So here are the 3 team members you need to go have that discussion with.
I completely agree with the statement. And that's like one of my favorite things in the world, David, is that we've built a team that we can say, this is the vision and this is what needs to be accomplished. This is, this defines success. You guys figure out how to do it. So that's one of my favorite things. And we have leaned into that.
So tell us more about the team, the company. You guys have mentioned it. I've mentioned Bold House, but tell everybody who you guys are and what you do.
Yeah. So Bold House is a training, consulting, and business coaching firm. We are the undisputed champions at helping small businesses win big clients. So our clientele are coaches, Colby certified consultants, other types of consultants, other types of professional service providers, and really anyone from one employee themselves all the way up to organizations with 30, 40, 50 employees who are selling some type of expertise into organizations, whether that's the Fortune 500, whether it's the Global 2000, universities, colleges, nonprofits, NGOs, government agencies, mid-markets, well-funded startups. Really, it's in that B2B space. We use corporate for shorthand, but it's that entire space. And so, really who we're working with at times are Colby consultants and other types of leadership coaches and culture experts. And, it's really interesting because we were sharing with you in the green room that everything that we've done at Bold House from the beginning, I mean, honestly, I'm so thankful to Phil for introducing me to Colby back in 2009, because if it's not just about how I lead myself as a leader and how we've grown this team, because we now have a team of just under 20 team members, and that counts our core team, our sales team or / business development team, as well as our faculty, because we have a lot of coaches and trainers and consultants that are working with our clients. So we're just under 20 people now. We've been named as an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company. And none of that really, David, would have been possible to have grown a faculty, to have grown a business development team, or to grow the core operational team had it not to mention our Bold House Collective, which is, closing in on about 800 different experts worldwide that have worked with us, that are part of our sort of branded community, in addition to the thousands and thousands of folks who've attended our events, attended our training, used our training programs and products. And so, we've done business now with experts and small business owners in 72 countries around the world. We've worked with over 10,000 small business owners. And so you look at that reach and you look at how we've been able to grow over the last 15 years. And honestly, Colby touches like every single piece of that. It touches our core team, it touches our faculty, our business development, how we're able to get repeatable results with our community of small business owners that we work with. We've even taken this work into our corporate clients. I mean, it literally, and Phil and I, we like our team take it home. We use the insights that are provided through the Colby assessments, even to create, we joke and call it marital bliss. And so it's just so amazing because it's really hard to picture any facet of the business if Colby wasn't a part of it.
Okay, I'm not going to let the marital bliss thing go without talking about it. So, what do you mean? And can you give me an example? I mean, I think
Yeah.
I know what you
So I'm,
mean.
I, I'm just going to start on this. So
Yeah,
Okay.
please, Phil.
I'm a 5393 married to a 7733. So we have two action modes where there are significant follow through and quick start, where there
Yep.
are significant potential for conflict. And understanding like how we're built and then doing some adaptation, knowing that really there were a lot of times where my wife was getting rightly so very frustrated with some things. And the nice thing is understanding the Colby and being able, when after the A to A came out, which by the way is still probably my favorite report out of the entire system, like greatest thing since sliced bread, having that 7-page blueprint on how to operate effectively together, whether you're in business or in life, is like super duper helpful. And since I'm the Colby certified consultant, I kind of take it on myself to manage that. But the nice thing is just like little tweaks can make massive differences in removing conflict and potential for conflict from relate all types of relationships, whether it's boss to employee, team member to team member, or spouse to spouse, or spouse to adult children.
Yeah. So my husband is our CFO at Bold House, and he joined the company 5, 6 years ago. He is an 8534, although I think the four is a lie because he's definitely not. Like I tease him about the four all the time. I'm like, I think you're supposed to be handier, Mike. But so he's gonna kill me for that one, but that's okay.
That's where his implementer shows up.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Oh, right, his drums. Yes, exactly. But the 3 quick start to my 9 quick start definitely has caused challenges over the years. Conversely, though, he is a great profile for someone in the CFO seat. And his corporate background, when he was a corporate executive, he was in audit, finance, and risk management, right? So you can kind of see again
Yep.
that great fit there. So really good. I think one of the things that going through, especially the A to A report that Phil was just mentioning, and also we use the coaching reports with one another as well, like just understanding that Mike is not my brainstorm partner. Mike is the person that I take the business ideas to after I've sat on them for a little bit. I've done a little bit of my own research, I've thought them through, and I'm looking for what am I not seeing in this idea? Where will this destabilize the business? Where do we have some risks around this we might want to mitigate? What would be the way we would want to do this with a risk profile that we're comfortable with as a business? And so, really understanding, and I know a lot of couples end up working together in some way, shape, or form, especially, post pandemic. Lots of people have chosen a new path, or,
Yep.
start more businesses are starting in the United States and around the world than ever before. So, a lot of couples are finding themselves working together. And we find this when clients come in to work with us at Bold House. A lot of times there's one spouse who is the entrepreneurial spouse and they want their significant other to be involved in the business, in part because by both being involved in the business, there's more flexibility from a lifestyle perspective. One of the greatest things about Mike being in the business and not having a traditional job is we can plan our vacations however we want to plan our vacations. We can take time off to be with our kids. Like we don't have a boss that stops us from doing that. The exchange of that, right? Because there's a trade off with everything. The trade off is we have to be able to work successfully together because now we're spending a lot of time together. And so, really, understanding that it's not when Mike is questioning ideas, it's not, oh, I'm questioning my wife and I'm trying to undermine her ideas. It's that his brain is looking at, well, where is this going to create bottlenecks in the business? Where don't we have the bandwidth to deliver on this? Where might this not be successful? What risk are we exposing the business to? And so I think it took out some of the bite, some of the sting, because a lot of times when we are, I married my high school sweetheart. So we've been together a really, really long time. And so you're with somebody a long time, you can take things personally. And I think that what's nice about the Colby is it takes that sort of personal piece out of it. And I can't tell you how many times, David, we've been in a private strategy day with a client and their significant other. And when we talk about the Colby, they just start to look at each other with this like, oh my gosh, that makes so
Yeah.
much sense now. And we've literally have people who've said, a few weeks later after we've worked with them, they'll say, I think you saved our marriage because we were going at each other and sort of wanting to change the other person and make them wrong. And now we see also what their strength is, and we can lean into appreciating the strength instead
Yeah.
of looking at this as some type of a personality flaw. And I think that has just been transformational. It's in my marriage and my relationship. I mean, honestly, so my mother works for the company as well, and she's an 8 follow through. In fact, she is our sole initiating follow through on our team. She's our firm administrator. She's been with us for a long time. She had been a firm administrator for law firms with 100 plus attorneys for like 20 years. So, highly, highly experienced firm administrator. If I went out to the market, I wouldn't be able to find someone better. So she's in our firm, but it was so funny, David, because when she joined the company, I was like, you're going to have to take the Colby, but I'm going to guess what your Colby is. And I guessed it exactly, like every single MO guessed it exactly, in each of the action modes. And she laughed. She's like, of course you guessed it exactly right. But I'm a 3 follow through. She's an 8 follow through. So growing up, there was like tremendous butting of heads on,
Yep.
the way I wanted to tackle my school projects to the way that my room was a disaster and how, she would every Saturday morning, we'd have to clean the house. It was an only child. She's a single parent. And on Saturday mornings, I'd wake up and there would be a cleaning schedule of like 7 a.m. to 7:06, do this from 7:07 to 7:18. I mean, I'm talking down to the minute. And it was just so funny because I was like, suddenly I understood her. And also she better understood me. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about Colby is that you can really appreciate someone else's perspective and you can appreciate their strengths. And when we do
Yeah.
that, we have such more rewarding relationships.
Well, and the way you described it,
Yeah, I
taking
think
the
one
sting
of the
out.
best quotes. I was
Oh,
gonna
go
say one of the
ahead,
best
Phil.
quotes I've heard around this is from Dr. Randy Blass. He's a professor of entrepreneurship down at Florida State University. And he said, he may have gotten it from somewhere else. He's the one I heard it from. So, I always want to give credit where credit's due. But he said, never ascribe to malice or incompetence that which you can ascribe to miscommunication. And I feel that really captures when you're looking at human dynamics and teams and how individuals operate together, whether it's, pairs or bigger spouses and parents to children, you finish this sentence. If you don't do it the way I do it, you're doing it, fill in the blank. And,
Yep.
95% of the time people say wrong. Well,
Yep.
that's actually wrong. So but we've seen, miscommunication and, really, leaders and teams that were at each other's throats, like just a massive drop off, 70-80% reduction in miscommunication because now they understand how the other people are built.
Yep.
And it's not good or bad. It just is. But there's having that appreciation makes just a massive, massive difference.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is that that notion of taking the sting out, and it is whether it's a personal relationship or a professional one, or Angelique, as you're talking about, a lot of times those are the same.
Same.
Spouses or
Yeah.
parents and children that work together, it's both personal and professional. And I think the sting comes so often when, pick the dynamic of it's parent child, and you're the child and the parent, you don't feel the respect from the parent. You feel like I didn't do it the way they wanted or expected me to. And Phil, as you're talking about, if that's just because they don't understand, they think, well, hey, they should do it the way I do it. If they don't, there's something wrong. It's not that it's wrong, but when you can fix that and when you can get both people to not just understand. I mean, understanding is kind of, to me, the foundational level, but it's really truly respecting and appreciating those differences. As we were talking about earlier, when you get that person who does it a different way than you do and they make your life easier, it's not just, oh yeah, they're different, whatever, I guess that's okay. It's thank goodness, and yeah, it does take the sting out and it lets you listen. So Angelique, I was fascinated because you referred to your husband as your brainstorm partner, and that is not what most people would think. I mean, a 3 and quick start is not what most people would think of as a great brainstorm partner. But I love the description that you gave. It's, he had the role in brainstorming where you had a bunch of ideas and you make sure that he comes in and adds almost the sanity to it, the reality check. Would this even work? Great idea, but is it a great idea for our business? And yeah, so to me, that's figuring out how do you get people in the right roles in that process of brainstorming and then bringing ideas, not just to that ideation phase, but actually the rolling them out to make them work phase. Yeah, I think that's
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
fascinating.
Mike's the reality check because you
Yeah.
put two 9 quick starts in a room together, and it's there's all kinds of crazy things that can come out of that. And so yeah, as Angela said, yeah, from a background standpoint, professionally, but then just how he's built cognitively, he's a fantastic stabilizer and reality check, and we'll ask the questions that we won't ask because we're, our 9 quick starts get the bit between their teeth and just kind of, run off down the, over the hill and through the woods to grandmother's house. And so he's first of all, brilliant guy, but also that plays that role so well in the organization.
So tell me about how you guys used Colby as you were going through your rebranding process that you did about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Tell everybody what
Yeah,
you
that was
guys
a
did. What did it look like? And then how did you each use your Colby strengths?
Yeah. So one of the things that was really interesting is I had our branding expert that we were working with share their Colby with us. Now, they hadn't looked at it in a while. It wasn't something they were as familiar with, but I had them share that with us. And I'm so glad they did because they're a very long line follow through. And I am not, which first and foremost prepared me for a very process oriented approach to what we were
Yep.
about to go through. So I was able to sort of mentally prepare that because, I just want to let's just get straight to the name. Like, let's just have a
Yep.
naming brainstorm session. And it was going to be this very meticulous process that I was about to go through. So I think one, it was just sort of steeling myself for that process and having that self-awareness that I was going to have to sort of pause my involvement with certain elements of it. So I think on just a very pragmatic perspective, there was that. The other piece of it, though, was getting to whenever you go through a rebrand, if you're going through a rebrand that's going to be successful, and I knew this from my corporate marketing and sales work, the goal of the rebrand, you want your brand to truly get to the essence of your organization. Like, what are you really all about? When you have a good brand, when it truly embodies the essence of who you are. And one of the things that we sort of discovered in our process, given the questions that our branding firm was asking us and what they were sort of excavating out of us, was that we are very bold. That Phil and I and our faculty and our ideas and our approaches, they're contrarian, they're liberating, they break the rules. They, basically don't ask permission. We beg forgiveness later, right? That's that boldness. And also our clients are doing really bold work in the world. When sometimes we explain what we do as helping the Davids take on the Goliaths, right? And so if, some of our clients are 2-3 person businesses that are working with brands like Google and Facebook and Toyota and Mercedes and Delta and Coke, all these brands, you better be bold, right? If you're going to, and
Yep.
then the other thing we looked at is that our clients stay with us forever, pretty much. They might go work with a specialist on X, Y, and Z here and there, but they always keep coming back to us because the foundational stuff that we teach it lasts forever. It's the stuff that no matter what happens with AI, whatever happens with the latest SaaS tools that you can plug into your website, it doesn't matter. the core foundational principles are what we're always teaching. And so people, and then the results that they get, they always come back to us. They always come home. Hence, bold house. Our clients are the bold, we are the bold, and we are the home for these change agents and thought leaders in the world. So that's kind of where the brand came from. As we were looking at that process, though, and we looked at why are we so bold, and also why do folks come back to us again and again? What we realized in part was our faculty and our coaches are by and large very long line, quick starts. So that's kind of ingrained DNA organically into our brand that we are always future focused. We're always challenging the status quo. We can totally handle whatever risk. We operate well under risk, uncertainty, fast pace, million different balls in the air. And so that was really kind of interesting. It was like, oh, look at how we've kind of, Phil and I have cloned ourselves, even on our faculty, on our business development team. And so that's kind of created this sort of boldness in the organization. And then secondarily, one of the reasons when we were doing some interviews, talking to our clients, looking at what our clients had shared with us about why they always come back to us, one was because we're constantly challenging the status quo and, moving faster than the market. Number two was because they told us they feel seen. They're always like, oh my gosh, I've worked with so many other organizations on coaching and, I've been coached, I've taken marketing courses, I've done this, I've had business advisors. You guys are the first people that really saw me. And we've had people break down in mastermind sessions and coaching because they're like, I have invested, $200,000 in trying to get help with my business. And you guys are the first ones who actually saw who I am. And there's a couple of things. I mean, there's certain things in our proprietary process that makes that a very purposeful excavation of who they are. But a huge part of it, David, is Kolbe, because it allows us, when we take the Kolbe assessment on someone and then we look at their resume where they've spent the last 15, 25, 35, 40 years of their career, the work they've done, where they're struggling in their business. It's like, it all reveals itself to us very easily. And then we're able to really show them how they can make some shifts in their business, recoup all the investments they've made, use all their experience that they've ever had in their business, and then match that up with strategies that they won't be in resistance on. Match that up, basically remove the friction and the resistance that they're up against and have them really lean into using their strengths and their instinct so that they can get momentum in their business. And so it was really interesting because every step of the rebranding process, it was like, oh my gosh, there's Kolbe again. Oh my gosh, there's Kolbe again. Oh my gosh, look at that. There's Kolbe again. And so as we were finding the essence of who we were, the Kolbe was written into our DNA. No matter what we explored in that process. And it really felt good because it wasn't like that was an accident, but to then go back, sometimes you have an intention, but then you forget about the intention and you go in some wackadoodle direction. For us, it was like, oh my gosh, look at that. We said we were going to do that. We made it really intentional. And actually, that is what we built. And so when we look at our client retention rate, when we look at the success rate of our clients compared to the industry averages, there's no question that us basically being able to get inside their brain and really see how they're going to operate and take action instinctively allows us to be a better trainer, a better coach, a better consultant, a better advisor to them. And we are very clear with people, David, that so whenever we walk into a strategy day with a client, for example, we're like, look, this is how we're built and this is how you're built. And so a couple of times you might see how we've done something, but that doesn't mean you have to do it that way. So we're always reinforcing their freedom to be themselves.
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons, from my perspective, because I've gotten the pleasure of working with you guys for a while and being at your conference a couple of times, you guys take a different approach than a lot of companies. You listen. You don't just give a one size fits all, oh, here's what we do. It's the same every time. Just do this. I'm telling you, when I get asked, well, when does Kolbe not work? My answer is really when the person using it has the attitude that there's one way to do something. It's my way. And, I'm right. And if that doesn't work for you, go away. same thing in your business. If that were your approach, Colby wouldn't be as helpful. But you guys,
Right.
it works because of the approach and the process that you guys use with your clients. You do listen to them, you figure them out. You've learned a lot. You know what works and what doesn't work. So you aren't just sitting back and being totally passive, but you tailor the solutions that are going to be actually workable for them rather than just the one size fits all. It's our thing. We never vary anything. But yeah, that's just from my kind of interested outsider perspective on why Colby has fit with what you guys do so well.
Yeah, it's really been, I mean, it's hard to even say I feel like any words would just be an understatement, but we've had folks come in to work with us who, they've been an executive for 25, 30, very successful Fortune 500 companies, managing directors, EVPs, they come in, they start a business, and they never had the benefit of having their Colby MO done before working with us. And they're just, to Phil's earlier analogy, like the skies part, and there's this self acceptance that happens in that moment too. And I think what being a business owner is hard, right? It's a challenge, right? That's why so many organizations out there exist supporting, from EOS and others, right? Of like, how do you grow a business? And, so confidence is a big requirement. You have to be confident. You have to believe in your belief is so important. And I do believe that when someone has their Colby assessment and they see how they're built, gives them that validation and that security to be okay with how they are built, and then look at where they need to put other people around them that can see and have the strengths that they don't have. So it's been just a huge differentiator. And, I know Phil talks about this all the time. So Phil, I think that one piece of advice that I would just have for all of the business owners that are in your audience, because I know a lot of them are coaches and leadership experts and culture experts, is to be really mindful of programs that are cookie cutter, in that if you're not built like the person who designed it, it's probably going to have a lot more friction and resistance for you. And, there's enough friction and resistance in the market,
Yeah.
like
Business
there's
is hard enough
enough.
already without making it
Yeah.
even harder or unnecessarily more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a really important point, I think. Phil, were you going to add something?
Well, I was just gonna reinforce that. So number one, we won't work with anybody privately who doesn't do their Colby. And over the decade plus, we've had a couple of folks that just went into resistance. We're like, that's fine. Then we're clearly not a good fit for you, because because if we don't know how they're built cognitively, that takes like a giant arrow out of our quiver in helping them actually craft a solution that's going to work for them. Because
Yep.
it's just like we're kind of flying blind at that point, because it's how they will take action, what they will and won't do. And so, absent having that, it's gonna be frustrating for us. It's gonna be a waste of their money. And so we'll just say no. And it's so fascinating. We had one lady a while back, I actually can think relatively early on, she was so mad that she was an initiating fact finder and not an initiating quick start. And she insisted that she was not an initiating fact finder. And so she went and did basically a mini dissertation and, put together like a 30-page report on why she was not an initiating fact finder. And then was presenting like statistic after statistic and
Kind of
then
proving that
she's
she
like,
really was a fact finder.
"Eh,
To prove that she was not a fact finder. Yeah.
No,
fact finder."
but
And then toward the end presentation, you could see her kind of slow down. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I am a fact finder, aren't I?" And we're like,
Yeah.
you are." And
yep,
so we want you to be, actually, that's fantastic. And that's awesome. And we want you to embrace it and leverage the heck out of it, because I think
Yeah.
I think in some circles, there is this feeling that if you're not an initiating quick starter or, a long line accommodator, like you're not going to be successful as an entrepreneur. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean,
right.
we have a huge range of codative builds in our community. And with the right support, if they focus on the right things, if that like fully embrace and step into their strengths, and then build the team around them to cover the other areas, they can be like magnificently successful. But I think she thought that you had to be an 8 or 9, 79 quick start to be successful. And she just swore up and down she was not a fact finder, but that was very, very humorous. And watching the light bulb go off was, I mean, it's probably been 7, 8 years and it just still tickles us to death.
Well, I'm just glad that the light bulb went off for her and you didn't have to beat her with all of that because it was so obvious as you're telling me the story. It's like, yeah, all the facts, the figures, the data, she's trying to prove she's not and accomplishing the exact opposite at the same time, but she figured that out.
Yeah,
But
we fortunately were both trained in a number of techniques, so we allowed her to give us the presentation, like,
yep,
because we knew she'd probably, have, and she did. She had the moment, and it was really a really endearing moment. And I think
yeah,
all of us, one of the most important skills, I think, as a business owner is self-awareness. And
yep,
so that's, I think, one of the other great things about Colby is the amount of self awareness that it can give us if we can be open to seeing it, to hearing it, to letting it in.
yep,
And there's really nothing more humbling as an entrepreneur than growing your team and leading your team. I mean, it really is the hardest thing you're going to do. People think it's marketing, sales. It's not, it's growing and leading your team. And so to have that self-awareness is so important to bring that forward. And so to me, I think as a leader, knowing the next level that we're taking this business now, it's very humbling and continuously coming back to, where would I have a blind spot and giving my team the freedom to be able to work through projects and initiatives with their own instinct and to just find to support them in that, but not dictate to them. And
yep.
that is something. So, to me, that's about a bit of entrepreneurial maturity that comes at each level. There's another level of self awareness that you need to have. And so it's been really interesting too for me that at each level of the business, I have to come back and really take another look at my MO and how I'm showing up because every level this business grows to requires a different me to show up. And so I think I'm so appreciative of this tool because I really would not have grown the business to the level that I have, nor would I be able to grow it to the level I intend to, that we're on the path of growing to, had I not had this tool in my quiver.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I know that what you guys have done is even if you didn't have Colby, you would be super successful at it. You drive so much value for your clients. And as you mentioned, a bunch of Colby certified consultants have gone through your program and are still your clients. So for those of you who are listening who haven't been, you should go to boldhouse.com, haus.com. Where would you guys suggest they poke around to find more information about you on your website?
Yeah, so want to definitely go to the homepage, boldhouse.com. There's an awesome proposal template on there built by a quick start. So built by built by me. So full disclosure on that. But the other site to take a look at is Bold House Groove, GROOVE.com, Bold House Groove. That's our annual conference. It's really a gathering of change agents and professional services providers working with organizations all over the world. And that is just a phenomenal event to come to and really understand how to do business development done right from the perspective of a former corporate decision maker. And so it's just very different than everything else. The other thing, there's another URL, it's a little harder to get to. So I'll share this, but it's boldhouse.com/, ultimate sales.script. So boldhouse.com/ultimate sales.script. It's hidden. There's no other way to find it other than knowing the URL, but it's our amazing sales script to use with B2B organizations. So that's a great tool. We actually developed that, David, for your conference last year. And so we put that together for the Colby community. So that's a link that we've shared with your community before, but it's a great resource. And folks can also find Phil and I on LinkedIn, or you can find me on Instagram at Angelique Ruers. where we're always talking about working with corporate clients, and we talk about growing teams, and we talk about Colby stuff because, again, it's in every part of our business, from how we lead ourselves as leaders to how we grow the team to how we lead the team to how we work with our clients, even to the clients that we work with, David, who we encourage them that they need to have a Colby certified consultant on their own team if they are not one. If they are doing work with organizations, they need to be assessing their clients and their team so that they know how to better support their organization. So for us, it's just like a whole roll forward. It's just a ripple effect. And so, we talk about those things on Instagram as well.
Great. Yeah. And I would really encourage anybody who's listening, who's interested, go to the event, that your conference. I've been there, as I said, 2 or 3 times now. And it's always, I always learn great stuff and bring it back to my team here. So it's very helpful. So thanks to both of you. Really appreciate your time here today. And thanks to all of you for listening. And we'll see you again soon on the Powered by Instinct podcast. Bye, guys.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Powered by Instinct. This show is brought to you by Colby Corp, a company that helps leaders and organizations thrive using the only instinctive strengths assessment on the market. If you enjoyed this episode, then follow Powered by Instinct wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or join us online at colby.com/podcast for all the latest episodes.